William Bill Nichols was known in the clogging world as the grandfather of clogging. He touched so many lives through clogging and square dance that he left a legacy of cloggers behind him. Bill learned Southern Appalachian square dancing and clogging from his grandfather and mother. As a young man, he worked at Fontana Village Resort in Fontana, North Carolina. Bill Nichols gave demonstrations with his wife and 4 children on the famous floor where many championships were held. He taught at many workshops over the years, teaching so many dancers. Bill was also the one that created the clogging terminology that cloggers use today at workshops and clogging classes. Bill's legacy was about preserving the Southern Appalachian dance form. When Bill passed away, ACHF wanted to honor his memory in honoring the directors and dancers who continue to pass on the Southern Appalachian legacy. Today, we are honoring another legend in clogging that has also strived to keep the traditional Southern Appalachian heritage alive. Born in Wilmington, North Carolina, this director began dancing at an early age and continued throughout her childhood, high school, and during college. In college, she met a young Marine named Buck. The two were married, and for the next 7 years, she was a school teacher as he finished his tour of duty and became a teacher. During their summers together, they worked at Camp Kirkwood in Watha, North Carolina, moving to the camp permanently in 1977. That same summer, this director participated in the annual recreation workshop in Montreat, North Carolina, where she met Mr. Glenn Bannerman. Glenn was teaching a beginner class in clogging, and this director soaked it up. The next year, she went back and took the class again. Shortly after this trip, their son Bruce was born. Over the next years, she and her husband started teaching clogging classes at the camp, and each summer they would take their campers on trips outside the camp. In the summer of 1981, while at Oconee State Park in South Carolina, during the Friday night square dance, they met Mr. Bill Nichols. At the end of the evening, Mr. Nichols invited them to his car, where in the trunk he showed them the beginnings of the National Clogging and Hoedown Council that would be formed later that year. Then, in 1982, they moved to the new studio in Burgaw and formed a new clogging team called the Cripple Creek Cloggers. That summer, they took their clogging team to a competition in Apex, North Carolina. 2 things happened at this competition. They met Mr. Bob Johnson and the Flatland Cloggers for the first time, and they met Mr. Dennis Cobia, who invited them to perform in his festival in Provo, Utah. They traveled by bus to Utah and were showcased at the event as a true traditional clogging team. They also met a young man named Burton Edwards and his sister Becky. Then, weeks after returning, a new little clogger was added to the team, their son Jason. The next summer, they went to a competition in Chesapeake, Virginia, hosted by the Flatland Cloggers, and while at this competition, they met another traditional clogging icon, Mr. Dan Angel, who described their team as the most traditional team at the competition. He invited them to his new festival in Maggie Valley, North Carolina, the America's Clogging Hall of Fame. From 1982 to 1991, this instructor and her husband brought together people from all walks of life: doctors, lawyers, carpenters, nurses, moms, dads, brothers, and sisters, teaching them not just a form of dance, but giving them a community to dance with. In January of 1991, her husband Buck passed away, and that October he was inducted into the Clogging Hall of Fame. This instructor continued to teach traditional clogging at her studio, and in 2004 was inducted to America's Clogging Hall of Fame as well. Over the last 45 years, Miss Nancy has been excited to share the art and heritage of traditional clogging just as she learned it from Glenn Bannerman. Even though she is not the acting director of the Cripple Creek Cloggers now, she still travels with the team to perform in nursing homes, festivals, competitions, and many other events. The team is now under the direction of her youngest son, Jason Aycock, and her other former dancers, Brittany Norris and Hazel Ellison. Her studio boasts second, third, and even fourth generation cloggers who she affectionately considers her adopted grandchildren. Each year she works hard to remind people that traditional clogging is still a fun, exciting, and special form of dance that brings friends and families together. Now let's make welcome our William Bill Nichols Heritage in Action recipient, Miss Nancy Aycock Rivenbark.